Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Inside the Box lecture series. This semester, we are focused on experiencing the arts in many ways from the inside or even from a park, as you might see tonight. I am so delighted to introduce our speaker, Edwin Harris, AIA and NOMA. I recently met Edwin in person, and I am certain that you are going to enjoy his talk. Edwin is co-founder of EVOKE, an architectural design studio in Durham, North Carolina, that believes that people matter. We love him and his design philosophy already. Edwin's design aptitude has resulted in several competition wins, including the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. These striking achievements complement the 35 design awards that Edwin's projects have achieved. He has served as design award juror for the Society of College and University Planning, AIA Detroit, AIA New England, and AIA South Carolina. While at the Freelon Group and Perkins and Will, two amazing firms, his visioning for projects like Emancipation Park garnered him recognition as an emerging designer for the global firm. In 2020, he was named to the Triangle Business Journal 40 Under 40 for his professional achievements and community service initiatives, as he mentors many students. He is a 2022 recipient of the National AIA Young Architects Award. He is currently a professor at North Carolina State University. I'm so happy to have you here, Edwin. His title is Till It's Done. So handing it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you all for having me. I really appreciate this, and I look forward to the questions and comments following this talk. So let me share my screen. Once everyone can see it, please let me know, and I will get started.
We can see it.
All right. So as Carol said, the title of this presentation is Till It's Done. And the title really stems from a multitude of things, so I'll explain that. But anyone who knows me knows that I'm a really big fan of the musician D'Angelo. He has a song called Till It's Done, and I'm not gonna read all of this. But the questions that he talked about was really about this idea of, do you have the will to fight and stand up for the things that you believe in, even when it seems as though you're going to lose the battle? And it seems as though the opposition is kind of, challenging, right? And so for us, we feel like we have the will. We feel like we actually care about trying to make something better out of the world. We're very, very optimistic and ambitious about the power of design. We really believe that design can truly change the world. And so in 2016, we are a very young firm. Me and my business partners, Terry and Billy, we started EVOKE. And we started really with the premise that people matter. We really believe that. And we believe that people are, from no matter what their walks of life, are deserving of great design. And that can be anything, not just buildings, the public realm, it can be sculptures or anything, but we really believe that great design really makes the world better and can transform people's lives. And so that is kind of the thesis in which we kind of have started with, and that's the way we practice. And so, again, just to reinforce what we state, we talk about this inherently whenever we kick off a project. Whenever we interview for a project, this is our thesis statement, is that we believe that we can make the world better through design. And so it's not just the work that we do, but it's also the people that we touch and impact. And so we consistently do this. This is not just a photo op. This is very much kind of what we do. We bring in people from all walks of life, and we want to expose them to design because we're really excited about design. I love coming to work every day. I love what we work on. I love the idea of just creating something that truly is going to impact people. The thing that, I want you all to think about is that anytime you design anything, and as you move on with your careers, these are real investments. And particularly for us, we do a lot of public work. And so these buildings are meant to last 50 years, 100 years. And so what statements are you making about the priorities of today that you want to share with the world in the future? You know, I really believe in that. And I think those are the things that we start to think about as we work into our practice. And as I've said before, I think we have an incredible team. I think we have the best team ever, period. And so this is the team of people that work with us right now. And so, you know, we're excited. Like I said, we have fun in what we do, and we just go for it. And so with that said, let me back up a little bit and just give you a little history on me. So my mentor is this man named Phil Freelon, who's on the right. And I worked with him for almost 10 years, and he exposed me to a lot of opportunities. He saw potential in me as a designer and gave me the opportunities that I had. And so we worked on a lot of public work. I was really fortunate to work on these three projects. So the museum to the left, I was a project designer on the National Museum of African American History and Culture in DC. I spent 6 years of my life on that project. The National Center for Civil and Human Rights in Atlanta, Georgia, I was a project designer for that as well. And again, seeing that from competition until completion was something that I was able to do. And then finally, Emancipation Park in Houston, Texas, I was the lead designer for that. And so every component of that project I designed from the beginning to the end. And this was, again, 7 years of my life. And I was working on these projects kind of concurrently. And so, again, these are great opportunities that I had, but they forever impacted me. And then also me and my co-founders in terms of how do we want to practice architecture, and how do we want to practice really design in general, not just architecture, but design as a whole. And so as we talk about this whole idea of till it's done, I want to talk about this idea of place power. And what I talk about, and this is these are tenets that we work through and the goals that we try to have when we design each project. And so these are the components that we like to think about. I'm going to break down each project that I show you today under these categories. But if we do it right, we believe that every project should actually be comprised of all these components, but some kind of express it more than others. And so again, I want to kind of talk through these under this idea of place power. And place power is just this idea of, again, we call ourselves EVOKE because the most incredible thing to me is when people who have no idea about design step into a space and they have no idea why that space inspires them and takes their breath away. That's the moves and stuff that we're after. And those are the things that, again, gets us really excited about what we do. So the first kind of tenet I want to talk about is this idea of authenticity and community. This is the very first project that we had as an office. This was 2016. This is a $20,000 project that we had it started with, and it's eventually grown. And so this is the Mary Potter Academy. And this is in a town called Oxford, North Carolina. It's actually was founded in the 1890s, the school was. And it was 165 acres, and this was a historically African-American school. This was the only school in the area that was actually available for African-Americans up until the 1970s, believe it or not. And so right now, there's only 3 buildings that remain. There's the house of the founder, and then these 2 buildings here. What's really interesting to note is that these 2 buildings were actually built by the students. So they learned trades and they actually built these buildings. And we were contacted by alumni from this school. They're still living and they're very, very proud of this. And they want to revitalize and they want to bring it back to what it was, or at least commemorate it, not bring it back to what it was, but commemorate it and create a destination that celebrates the legacy of the place and really speaks about this. And so again, these buildings were built in the 20s. And so some of them, but actually both of them were on the historic registry. And so how we work within that framework was important. And then there's this farmers market that we infuse into this to kind of revitalize the area. And again, try to create some kind of connection. So the experience is not just isolated to one building or just the architecture itself. It's really about the landscape as well. And so just as I'm not going to go into detail what these were, but these are just some of the visuals that we created to start thinking about how the space could be used and how it would be used, and how this becomes a framework and a connectivity and a language that's shared between all the different buildings. And so this is the industrial arts building that will be transformed into a conference center. And again, we're really just opening the building back up and allowing its kind of character to be expressed. And then we interject with more kind of new elements, but again, allowing there to be kind of this conversation between the old and the new, because this building cannot be stuck in the past. It has to actually be, for today and tomorrow, but not forgetting what the building was and how it functioned in the past. And then this is the gymnasium building, same thing. This is a new addition to it, but then what we're trying to do is, again, work within the framework. This building actually was not on the historic registry. And so we were able to do a little bit more. I show this image here because we do a lot of different forms of representation, whether it's digital or physical models. We 3D print, we build things by hand, we have a laser cutter. We do anything, we try to look at things from various spectrums just to make sure that we don't kind of miss things from kind of the blind spot. So I just think it's really important to note that we do think about that. And then this is the farmers market that I was alluding to. This is the only new kind of component within this framework. And it's really, again, to celebrate and to bring this idea of community into the space. The next project is much smaller. This is a sculpture. Like I said, for us, we really like working on a range of projects. And so this is 5 Points in Uptown Charlotte, kind of a similar story. Charlotte is really gentrifying pretty rapidly. And so this part of town is called the West End, and it's a historically Black area of town. Johnson C. Smith, which is the HBCU, is nearby. The Excelsior Club, which meant a lot to this community, is nearby still. And this is something that they really wanted to celebrate. This was a place where anybody who was anybody back in, before segregation or during segregation, they visited this area. And then finally, Dorothy Count Scoggin. She was actually the person who integrated the Charlotte public school systems in 1957. So she's still living. We met with her, we talked to her, and it was inspiring just to hear her talk. And so we worked on multiple sculptures, and we started to kind of think about these ideas and, the idea of the community and the idea of the faith. We call it the faith walk because there were a lot of churches in this area that really contributed to the fabric of this neighborhood and this community. And we wanted to be able to celebrate that, but not in a kind of a hokey way. We really wanted to think about what that could be in this idea of the collective. This is one of the sculptures that we're doing. Again, these are some of the photos that actually happened during the day that she integrated the schools. We met with, many community members. This lady right here, she was 97 years old and she remembered everything. And so that's one of the things that's also really important for us is community engagement. We really, again, we do public projects and we do public work. So listening and taking the time to listen and be inspired by the people that you hear, and you kind of interpret things. And so what we wanted to do is think about how do we create something that commemorates these moments. Like I said before, this part of town is gentrifying pretty rapidly. And so it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition. You look at this photo, kind of how things are starting to change. And again, just really, what is the fabric of the neighborhood that we wanted to celebrate? And we can't stop gentrification by any means. But what we can do is create these moments that at least celebrate and give clues as to what was here. And so that's what this sculpture was about. And we had a lot of fun with it, and we were really excited about it. So the idea of Excelsior and what that meant, we call this whole sculpture Ever Upward, Even Higher, because that's what that meant. And the idea of really kind of not getting stuck in just the past, but celebrating what the future could be. So the next tenet is this idea of context and specificity. We are working on this project. This is a public school for this Durham Public Schools, Murray Massenburg Elementary School. This is 135,000 square feet, and this is our site. And what's interesting about this site is the city of Durham is rapidly losing a lot of its green and open space because of the population growth is booming. So this is 33 acres of land. And typically that sounds like a lot of land, but around here, you need a lot more space to build a school of that size. This is supposed to house roughly 800 students. And so the typical way of designing schools around here is keep everything one level and you kind of spread everything out. And so you bulldoze the site. Well, this site was not possible for us to do that. And we had no desire to do that. That would be irresponsible as far as we're concerned. And Durham Public Schools was also on board with us, and they appreciated that. And so what we chose to do was to create more of a courtyard. And what that does is, again, you have to think about who you're building for. These are elementary school students. So a huge building could be really daunting to them. And so how do we reduce the amount of corridors? How do you start to think about these interior spaces and make sure that once they get to the building, they always know where they are? And so the idea of the courtyard and finding the center was something that was really important to us, but then also creating these moments where they could always look outside and look toward the beautiful wooded area. And so the other thing that's really important to note is just the amount of grade change that happens on the site. There's roughly about 70 feet of grade change that happens along that site. That's a lot. And so how do we take advantage of that? And so what we decided to do was make the courtyard sloped and then also create more of a bridge element that could actually cover kids during inclement weather. They could eat outside. They could do a lot of different things. And so the school board was really excited about this as an idea. They hadn't seen this before, and they chose to move along with that. And so again, this is the site, and this is how we chose to be fairly compact. The other thing that we're really proud of is that we were able to keep 2/3 of the existing trees on the site, which is really hard to do. There's a stream buffer here that we were able to maintain. And we're still working. It just started construction literally 2 weeks ago. But we are working through, and this is, again, where things are headed at the moment. I'm not going to go through the full floor plans or anything like that, but you can start to see this idea of the courtyard. You always kind of know where you are. You always are being connected to the exterior. And you always have this true wayfinding commons where the students can always have kind of the flexibility to know where they are. This is that section that I talked about. And this is how we're starting to think about, again, connectivity and what the experience could ultimately be. This is the view of the main entry. Again, creating something that's truly, trying to be aspirational, that's going to be a destination for the students and get them excited about being there. And finally, this is a view looking back toward the courtyard and the bridge. The bridge is actually the media center that looks out into the wooded area. And so again, this is under construction as we speak. And again, we're really excited about this idea and really embrace this idea of site and context. The next tenet is this idea of being a catalyst for innovation. That's something that's incredibly important. This project is called Hayti Reborn. And Hayti Reborn, the area of Durham is called Hayti. This was a historically Black neighborhood. And up until segregation, this was kind of the place for Durham. Durham historically has a great history and a rich history of Black Wall Street and a lot of prominent Black figures throughout the history of our country frequented Durham, and Durham was really the epicenter of kind of the African-American life. Up until the 1960s, the Hayti area existed. And I don't have the map to show you exactly what happened, but there was a freeway that came in, the Durham Freeway came in 1967, and it really completely cut off this part of town. And so all this vibrancy that you saw here ended up turning into basically a housing project. And so to this day, it was called Fayette Place. This is the Fayette Place Housing Project. Now it's been torn down. It's since been torn down. It's basically a scar on the land. It's 20 acres of land. And again, downtown Durham is right here. This is that freeway I was telling you about. And quite frankly, this is an embarrassment to the city, and rightfully so, it should be. And so we were engaged to look at this and to think about this as really an innovation park, a park for research, but also a park for living and celebrating the legacy of Hayti. And really looking forward to, again, closing the wealth gaps. And this is kind of founded by this foundation that we've been looking at, the Durham Equity Project. And so this is what we were able to create. We're still in the planning processes of this, but this is really this innovation hub that's really meant to, again, change and transform lives and really celebrate this idea of innovation. The way we started thinking about this, these are some of the kind of the stalwarts in African-American history, W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, and George Washington Carver. And thinking about combining intellect with hand, the education and the research, and making that all one destination. That was kind of really the inspiration we started thinking about. And we created this program. This is over 1 million square feet of program. But we wanted to think about this as this truly sustainable epicenter. We actually looked at getting rid of cars, no parking here. This is really, we would have a kind of a people mover that worked within and connected within the space. These are some of the sustainability components that we've been looking at and studying. We've been working with people to really make sure that what we're talking about can actually be done. And so again, this is all still in process, but these are the things that we really think about globally. This is the view of that people mover that we're talking about, really trying to create this connected city. And then ultimately, this is kind of that skin, thinking about energy savings and how we can start to make the building kind of a breathing building and a living building. Sustainability is key, but also make it celebratory as well. And then finally, this is just another view. And so this is in the very, very early stages, but this is a project that we're really excited about the potential of it. The next tenet is access, agency, and opportunity. And this project is the North Carolina Central television studio renovation. And what's really important about this project is North Carolina Central is the most prominent HBCU in the area. And a lot of their students actually are first generation college students. And so this studio, the before image is up top, they came to us basically saying we wanted to do something to make the studio nicer. And we thought, well, you know what, we can do more than that. We think we can make this really a leading edge studio that you can help train your students with and set them up for career paths moving forward. And they were on board with that. And so we started thinking about really allowing the studio to be on display, because the studio was actually in the space before. You just had no idea. And so if you see the views up top, these were the existing photos of the studio. And so what we wanted to do was think about how could we make something that, again, was transformative, but also was in keeping with the student or in keeping with the university rather, and was authentic to the university and who it was. And so this wrap here, which I'll speak more to before, but these are just some of the the images of the TV studio. We really transformed it. We really wanted to open it up. This wrap here is really celebratory of their school mascot. Their mascot is the eagle. And so we didn't want to be hokey about it, but we wanted to create an interpretive way of thinking about lighting the studio and becoming a true backdrop of the studio with something formally that was going to be striking and really evocative. And so this studio is really meant for maximum flexibility. So we had to learn about shot blocking in terms of how do cameras work and how do we allow for the maximum flexibility for a camera to move throughout the space, the lighting, all these things had to be considered. How do you make these things light up but not be too overpowering for studio lights? So again, this is just an exploded axon. You can kind of see the wrap of how things started to play out within that space. And then just the kind of the mixing room, the AV room, you can see this is what it was before, and this is what it is currently. And so it really was a transformation that they're really proud of. And then this is just, again, a detail showing kind of some of the detailing that we were able to create. And finally, this is the main view of the studio. And so the next thing, and I think this is the last project that I'll talk about, it's on the same campus, this idea of being intentionally expressive. What we really want to do and we think about is, again, everyone is deserving of great design. Everyone's deserving of their story being told. And so we believe that, the architecture and the design can tell the story of its community and of its place. And so there's no reason to be bashful about, design. And so we want to be appropriate, but we also want to be intentionally expressive. And so this project here is the 24/7 Collaborative Learning and Research Center. And what this is really is a hub for students who live off campus, for them to have a place when they arrive to campus. So this is North Carolina Central's campus. This is our site. This site is really the gateway into North Carolina Central's campus. So if our site is here, downtown Durham is to the north, and then to the south is North Carolina Central's campus. And so this is a relatively small building. What's also interesting, just as a side note, is the TV studio is actually in this building right here. So the project I just showed you is in this building right here. But again, they wanted this to really be a threshold and a gateway moment for the project, or for the university. Another thing that's really important to note is that this project happened during the height and the beginning of the pandemic. And so there was great sensitivity about what could happen and how can we make this space work, even if they can't be inside, students can't be inside. So we created this idea of this kind of shroud where this could be a porch or front porch for students to spill out, and actually who were comfortable being outside, they could be outside instead. And so again, this is just the physical model of this project, and you can see the shroud. The building itself is actually relatively simple, but it allows for this flexibility and this blurring of the indoor and outdoors. And so this site, before the site was vacant, it was a residential house. This is here, this residential house right here. And this is to the north. I'm gonna go back to the slide. These are just single family houses here. And so how do you transition the scale of single family to college campus? And so we were trying to mediate that as well, but also we wanted to keep in line this idea of the porch and celebrate that. So this is our reinterpretation of, or our interpretation of the porch based on these porches that are existing along the street. So we wanted to still have some level of context, but also again, be forward looking and think about how this works within the realm of the college. So again, this is an exploded axon. You can start to see how the components come together and what we use from a material standpoint. This is a floor plan that we've done. You can start to see us infusing light into the space. Again, fairly simple plan and fairly simple kind of layout. This is a view of the main lounge space. Again, the skylight, you can kind of see the spilling out with the study rooms to the right. Just another model, you can start to see the section. And then this is a section diagram or section perspective where you can really kind of understand how we start to relate and spill out to the outdoors. And then just another view of the model. And then this is the primary view looking toward Fayetteville Street and the main entry of the project. And so I'm going to wrap things up. You know, I talked about engagement and how important and how critical that is to us. We believe that really it's the people that give places power. And so, you know, our designs are, we like to think that they're pretty good, but they mean nothing if they don't resonate with who we're building for. And I would encourage you all to think the same thing. And as you move on with your careers, think about how your designs are responding to who you're building for and who you're designing for. I want to make sure I reinforce this. I have an amazing team. You know, me, Billy, and Terry, we lead this project, but I want to make sure I acknowledge the people that work with us. So Brittany, Mark, Angie, Leroy, Jason, Steve, Jessica, Parker, Matthew, Meredith, Daniel, Samantha, Stella, and Katie, all of which these people are incredible. They inspire me every day, and we challenge each other. And so with that said, I just wanted to say thanks to them and till it's done. So thank you very much. And I'm open to any questions you might have.